Hello, everybody, and welcome to Choice, Change, and Action podcast. You are with me, your host, Simone Milasas, and I happen to be in Peregium Beach in Australia. So I am in my Australia home at the moment for a month, getting a little bit over winter. I don't like waking up in the morning when I've got to run to put the heater on because it's so freaking cold, and I see the rest of the world, walking around in tank tops and out swimming in the sea, and I'm like, oh, it's cold. But it is Queensland cold, so it's not that bad. But you know what? I'm looking forward to going to Algarve next month and to South America because it'll be a little bit more warm. So, and today I am joined by Miss Sarah Grandinetti. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Simone. I'm grateful to be here.
And you are in your home in LA at the moment.
Yes, where it is bright and sunny and people are walking around in tank tops and jumping in the pool and in the beach. Yes.
Right, right. And I know. I mean, I actually did a cold plunge yesterday because the wind was still. My cold plunge bath is outside, and I came back from the gym. Oh, my muscles were like, oh, and good sore.
Yeah.
And I went cold plunge, walked outside, and if it's windy, that's the worst thing because you get in the cold plunge and then get out, and you're like, whoa, like when your phone says it's 10 degrees, feels like -2, that sort of energy. So, but I had a cold plunge yesterday. It was so good. I love it. Do you like cold plunge pools?
I've I've never done it. And do you know, like, weird Sarah fact? I'm actually diagnosed. This is not just California girl talking, allergic to the cold. Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
I
How can
it's
you be
it
allergic to the cold? Tell me more. I'm intrigued. This is
yeah.
not what the podcast is about, but hey, this is where it's going.
Yeah. It's called cold urticaria, and I'm supposed to carry an EpiPen. Because if I get too cold, my throat can close up, and it has. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so if you ever come to my house, you're not getting in my
I'm
cold
not
plunge.
going in the
I'm not
cold
dealing with
plunge.
that shit.
No. Yeah.
But
It would.
the funny thing is, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was the funny thing is that growing up in California and then meeting people around the world, and anytime I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm actually allergic to the cold. Everybody just thinks I'm like, you know,
Joking.
you're joking and like that it's just a dramatic thing that I say, and I'm like, no, actually, I am. It's funny.
I love it. Just enough drama to tell the story, but not enough to die.
Right.
Um, wow. But the thing I am noticing with cold plunge is there are cold plunge people, and there are people who are definitely a hard no. And I'm a big yes. Like my body loves it. I mean, the first minute you're like, your mindset is like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But it's so good and it feels so good in my body, and that's what I go with. And
Mhm.
Sarah and I were just talking before we pressed record, and I was commenting on how amazing she looks, and she said, and I feel good too. And I said, that's the most important thing. Like I think we forget, and it is how does your body feel? And are you waking up happy? Are you going to bed at night with a big smile on your face going, yes, I had a great day? And I think that is the most relevant thing that you should be choosing rather than any of the crap that this reality puts out there, with how you look image wise or what you're supposed to have or what you're supposed to do, etc. And one of the tools that we wanted to talk about today is the 5 elements of intimacy. And I think this is actually fits in quite well with this, because the 5 elements of intimacy is trust, allowance, gratitude, vulnerability, and honor. And the way I looked at when I found this tool out, um, I had this, I did this thing of going, I don't do relationships. Like, I don't do relationships. I don't see a good one. I'm not doing one. Like, that was my very strong conclusionary, point of view. And I remember Gary saying to me one day, okay. And he was like, and he asked me that way he like asks you a question a few times that you go, huh? And start to look at it. And I realized I had no question in my universe at all. I realized 2 things. One, I had no question in my universe. And number two, I was using other people as a reference point for myself. So I started to look at, well, if I was going to choose relationship, what would I like? If there was nobody else doing relationship on the entire planet, what would it look like for me? What would I choose? And I started to play with that question. And then when I looked at the 5 elements of intimacy, because I think a lot of people choose relationship in this reality because they think they need someone. I mean, all the movies, it completes me, all that sort of stuff. And that's not what I get relationship is. You should be with somebody because they create more with you, whether that's a friend, a colleague, a lover, partner, etc. And so I started to look at the 5 elements of intimacy with other people and looking at, was I willing to be that? And again, trust, honor, allowance, gratitude, and vulnerability. And then very closely to that, I went, oh, do I have this with me?
Mm.
And that's when I started to look at that and I went, I don't think I can how can I have somebody else trust me if I don't trust me? How can I, have somebody else be an allowance of me if I'm not in allowance of me? There's always going to be this conflict. So what I did was I wrote these down on Post-it notes and put them on my bathroom mirror. And I also put it on my steering wheel at the time too, because I was driving a lot, so that I could just have this tool in my face. And every single day when I was brushing my teeth or driving, I would pock and pod everywhere that I wasn't willing to be these elements. And I would do them one by one because I noticed there was a very different energy with every single one. Like you can lump them all, in one basket. But when you break it down, like, do you trust you? Do you honor you? Are you an allowance of you? Are you vulnerable with yourself? Do you have gratitude for you? There's different energy. And you can use the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement, which you can find out more on theclearingstatement.com, and pock and pot everything that comes up. And I realized for myself, I can't have something greater with somebody else unless I have this with me. I need to start with me. So that's what I got to, and that's what I started looking at these 5 elements. And beautiful, wonderful Kate Sarton, who works with Access and works very closely with you, Sarah, pinged me and said, hey, I have this idea of inviting Sarah onto your podcast to talk about the 5 elements because she has a different perspective and a different way of looking at it and using the tools. And she sent me a clip that you did in a class or a live or something like that. And I deliberately didn't listen to it because I wanted to come on here and just talk with you about the 5 elements and find out what that is. And let's explore that together. So first of all, I want to ask you, do you recall the first time you heard this tool?
I do. And I also recall having a very big snarky face. Probably not outwardly, but just it was like in my head. And I'm like, oh, we're writing Hallmark cards now? Is that what we're doing? Because
Dear
because
self. Yeah.
to me it's kind of like that. It was ethereal, it was out there, it was that thing people have told me forever, like self-love and I for the longest time and was standing in my own way from I didn't get how to integrate it, like I could look from a place of being those things for someone else, but I didn't know how to integrate it for me. And one of the things that I know so well now after what we'll get to of how I integrated them into my life, I know that I teach other people how to treat me. And if I'm judging me, if I'm not trusting me, if I don't have allowance for me, I am broadcasting that into their worlds as like the manual for how to be with Sarah. Like I write that manual. I did a live yesterday and I was talking about how like can you imagine showing up to like a job? Let's say you work at Starbucks and they're like, yeah, there's drinks on the board, make them however you want. Like there's no guidelines here on how to be at this place of employment, right? You would be like, okay, and just do whatever the heck you wanted because if you haven't been trained on how to be a Starbucks employee. And it's the same way with relationships. If I'm not having one with me and I'm not showing you how I honor me and how I trust my awareness and how I have allowance for when I mess up or when I succeed, I have all this like space for me, vulnerability with myself. How is anybody else, like you said, going to come in and be able to be that for me if I'm not choosing it? So I was like committed. I was pretty committed. And the story goes like that. It starts with like a commitment for a choice to have these Hallmark things in my life.
It makes me want to hug you right now so bad. Just be like, this is awesome.
Oh, I'd love to hug you.
Can you give me an example? I just wrote that down. I love that. Teaching other people how to treat you. Can you talk? Because, okay, let me look at this. Because I just finished a podcast with the wonderful, amazing Marilyn Bradford. It's on her podcast. And one of the things that she said to me was at the end, she said, God, you just talked about some stuff I've never heard before. I was like, yeah, but you were the energy that asked me it. So I spoke about it,
Yeah.
And she said, people, have this point of view about you. And I said, I know, but people like having a point of view about someone, especially if they don't even know them. And I'm in my 50s. I have a lot of choices that I've made. And, I like to say I've lived a colorful life. I've done a lot of different things, and I've been all over the world, and I've chosen very many different things. And so I have a lot of stories, or a lot of wisdom, whatever you want to call it, right? But people see me and then they go, oh, this, blah, 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 blah. And they try and put you in a box, right? And so it is interesting to be aware of when they put you in a box. And for me, to be an allowance of that, but also to, like, I want to say, like, jump out of the box whenever you can, but not from resistance and reaction, just from always being you. So you have a very similar thing. I mean, you come along, Sarah Grandinetti, you wear the, whether it's on one shoulder, it's great that you're Dr. Dane here's, sister, and on the other shoulder, it would be to the detriment. You know what I mean? It's like, it's got
Yeah.
this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are like, I don't know if I should speak to her. Oh, I want to speak to her. Like, this whole thing. So how do you approach that
Mm,
with these tools like you were talking about?
yeah. Well, okay. Let's start with that broadcasting system that teaches other people how to treat you, because
Mm,
another amazing tool that we talk about are like projections and expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections. So we're going to start with projections here. Um, I was so aware of the projections of me when I first started exploring access and showing up to classes, and I didn't know I was aware of all that. I
mm.
just like, it was so intense, and so I was like fighting it constantly, or aligning with it, and like, okay, this one feels better than the last one, and then I would just like shape shift.
Which is
And
like a good judgment. Like, I will
yeah,
align with
yeah,
your good judgment.
yeah,
Yeah.
they like me, but a lot, what's funny is a lot of the good judgment people were actually just wanting to get something from me that they thought I
Mm,
could like align them closer to Dane or whatever. Um,
yeah.
so this is a little different than the five elements. I love this question. So I also was like, I have to change this, because what I saw was I would walk through a room, and depending on who was projecting at me, I perceived the shape shift. Like, be small, be big, be loud, be happy, be pretty, be quiet. I had all of these like things that were always coming at me based on how someone had decided they were going to interact with me. And I remember walking into a room in Houston, and I had just kind of committed to being aware of the autopilot of my shape shifting, where I step
Mhm.
out of being me and I go into what you're calling like their box, or where they put me. And so I walked in, I said hello to the people who were like greeting, and I perceived something. I perceived a shift, just asking for the awareness of the autopilot. And I was like, oh, okay. And in that moment, I could make a different choice, lower my walls and barriers and step more into me. And then I walked into the room, and there was a woman who had been on my programs for a couple years. She was running the bookshop for her first time, and she had never met me in person. And her idea of me was different than the person that I just left. And I was so aware of that. And she had this big energy, and so she ran to me, but it was like the celebrity type of energy, and I was like, "Oh, I
Right.
could step into her projection, or I can choose to be me. What am I going to choose
Yeah.
right now in this moment?" And I walked through this room engaging all different people with such a heightened awareness of the autopilot, that 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 right there, once you get the awareness, you can make a different choice, right? So to me, it was like one moment of just being so aware of projections and going, oh, that's how that works. That's that broadcasting system
Mm,
where they're going to tell me who I get to be based on what they've decided I am.
yeah.
Okay, if I didn't have to buy it, what can I be in every room that actually is more of a contribution to me being me? Um, and then
Yeah.
and then came the elements of intimacy.
Well, I love the way this actually ties together. So, because a short story too. I remember it's about a year ago, someone in Australia said to me, came up to me, they had just done a class that I facilitated, and they said, oh, I just wanted to say thank you and tell you how much you've changed. And I was like, okay, like, I mean, I change every day, right? But to them, I changed a lot. And she tells me this story about being in Melbourne, and Dane was doing an energetic synthesis of being, and I walked into the room with him, which He's doing the class. I'm walking in. We were probably walking over from the hotel together because he would do that. He'd be like, "You ready to go to class? Yeah, let's walk over." And I wouldn't have thought anything about it. And we were chatting, and her friends apparently went, "Oh, look at Simone. Who does she think she is?" And she told me that, and I was like, I looked at her and I was like, "Wow, how am I supposed to receive that?" Because it's like I was just walking in with my colleague, like I've been friends with Dane for 25 years, and not realizing that people have these points of view all the time, right? So for me at that moment, I had to choose to be an allowance of me and of her. Okay, when she's telling me this story, and then now she's saying, "Oh, now you're a nice person." Like, sometimes, you know. And so, but it's bringing in that allowance all the time. But what I wanted, and I was watching on Instagram last night, this guy in Australia, Joel Bushby. I think he's fabulous. He's so kooky, in him and his wife on their Instagram. But he did this video, and he was really vulnerable. And he said, "Hey guys," he said, "Look, we put a lot of stuff out there, and we get a lot of people who, have the hate stuff and everything." He said, "I just want to keep reiterating, those people are in the cheap seats. Like, keep choosing what you're choosing. We're going to keep choosing what we're choosing. Thank you for all the gratitude, etc." And that keeps occurring. Like, the more you choose greater, it seems to be that there's more people who desire to vilify you as well. But just remember, for every one person who wants to vilify you, there's usually like 100 people who are so grateful.
Yeah.
But what I want to add in here is, what can you be with the 5 elements of intimacy here? Like, if you didn't have, as Sarah mentioned, these projections and expectations of people that you barely talk to, and you assume all this stuff, what do you like when you project and expect of someone to be something, to do something? What you end up creating is this judgment and this separation between you and them, rather than that desire or the willingness probably to be vulnerable and be like, "Hey, where's this person at?" Like you mentioned about hugging, and I'm so grateful when I go to places, and I do not mind hugging people at all. And every now and then there's a moment where I'm like, "Don't come near me," and the people who actually acknowledge that and are like, "Oh, she doesn't want to be hugged right now." I'm like, "God, I could kiss you for being willing to be aware of that energy." But if we be those 5 elements of intimacy with ourselves, we we can have that with ourselves, and we don't need something from somebody else in order to fulfill that.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times are you looking at somebody else to fulfill the 5 elements of intimacy for you, rather than being them for you? And everything at that is time to go send and we destroy and uncreate it. Right and on, good and bad, pock and pod, all 100 short stories, perverts, creations, bases, and beyond. So that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. As I said, you can find out more about it on theclearingstatement.com. So let's look at the 5 elements, Sarah. And I want to ask you, I guess, one is, what is the one that you found the most difficult to embrace?
Mm. Well, what if can I start with just how I started to develop them and play with them? And then
Hmm.
that'll probably open that up.
Go
Um,
for it.
so for me, I have heard multiple ways that people would play with them, and I just kept asking what was my way. And it probably took like a year and a half of like being in question about whatever my points of view about it was, or what, having the intimacy with myself was. And then all of a sudden it just popped. And this is how it popped. I committed to having the 5 elements of intimacy be my only facilitators for 3 months.
Hmm.
They were my facilitators. I called them the Great Five. This was before the Big Five. Do not confuse
Right.
the two. Okay. I called them the Great Five. And basically, for 3 months, I did not ask any other person in body to facilitate me. Now, I would go to classes, but I did not go to the mic and ask a question. If I had a question, I would ask one of the five to step forward. And so I would be like, "Hey, five, like if anything going on in my life." And I think what a lot of people trip up on, and I know I did, was if I wanted intimacy that was under the category of relationship. So I would and only a certain type of relationship. So I'd only look at intimacy when things came up in that arena, not
Hmm.
with my body, not with the earth, not with my money or my business. I was like really had it categorized. And so I took off the category and I started, no matter what came up, no matter what I was looking at, the only way I got facilitated is if I asked the Great Five to facilitate me. So it would be
Mhm.
like, and the way I compare it to is like, you know, that movie with Inside, it's called Inside Out, and they have the little characters in the girl's brain, and there's like joy and anger and sadness, and
Yeah,
like they all kind of talk. It's like, for me, it looked like that. And
yeah.
so I would be like, hey guys, who wants to facilitate me? And one would pop forward. I'm like, okay, vulnerability. All right, you're here. It's me and vulnerability. We're gonna walk through this together. I like literally like gave them little character energies for me, and I would step into with each choice for questions for vulnerability. Now, sometimes I would ask, okay, who else? You know, but the more that it was me and vulnerability, it was me and what was going on and vulnerability, and those are the questions I was asking. The more the energy of vulnerability started to show up for me, and same with all of them. Um, so to answer your question, which one was challenging? Uh,
So let me ask you another question, follow up on that though too, because when you use the Great Five, I love it. And so a situation comes up. By the way, I love this. Gary and Dane had a conversation the other day, and then I was facilitating Choice for Possibilities on day 2. Dane talked about it in his practical magic, and I was like, brilliant. You know, I said to him, you're like my co-facilitator, listening to your class in the morning and then going to CFP. Anywhere that you think you have a problem, what if you didn't have a problem? What if it was a situation? Because if you look at the energy of a problem, it's sort of dead in the water. You've got like, there's no question there. Whereas if you have a situation, it opens up an entirely new universe to a different possibility. And for me, what situation, you know, are you in or did you have? And then using the Great Five, it's like, what questions would you ask with that?
so whatever one popped, it would be like the one out of the gate would just be like, okay, where am I not choosing that element right now?
Hmm.
Because you know, we have so many tools in access consciousness. There are so many questions and layers of things that you can peel back and get more awareness. And um, when you have these advanced tools, oftentimes will be a lot of people will, and myself included in the past, I've simplified a bit. It's like looking for the biggest, baddest, newest clearing in order to change this thing, rather than like, what else can I choose here? You know, like the simplest of things, right?
What
So
else
it
is
would,
possible? Yeah.
yeah, and most, and so the Great Five showed me that too. It was like, okay, where am I not choosing to honor myself right now? What would a
Mm.
choice for honoring me or them or my money or my business, what would that look like right now? Where am I avoiding honor? You know, where am I defending that I already have all the honor that I'm going to have, you know, and just continue to play with those tools, but them being the star of the show of any facilitation. um so yeah, I mean, it was really, it was
Yeah.
like simple.
I like that. And, you know, recently I was just in Europe and I was having a conversation with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, about allowance, which is one of the 5 elements of intimacy. And I said to him, hey, can you help me? I said, I get the sense that I've like reached my limit of allowance. Like, you know, I'll be an allowance, choose allowance, allowance, allowance. But it's like it's hit this like this glass ceiling that doesn't exist, you know. And he said, yes, because if you actually chose true allowance, you would have to be willing to change your entire reality.
Mm.
I was like, oh, mic drop. And so ever since then, I started looking at everything because we're so quick to have a judgment of ourselves or something, which creates this like solidity energy and energy that we are familiar with. And so it's been about a month ago, I think. And ever since then, I like allowance has been my like new best friend. So in a way,
Mm.
I guess I'm using the way you're using, because allowance is like my new best friend at the moment, and the mantra. And the third thing that came with it was what I realized too, when I wasn't willing to be more with these 5 elements, something mattered.
Mm.
Like what came up for me was Gary, Dane, and Access really mattered to me. And he was like, you have to get to the stage where we don't matter. I was like, but you do matter. He's like, yeah, but you have to get to the stage where we don't matter. And what I looked at was, it was so interesting. If you have anything in your life right now that you go, this really matters, you tend to cut off your awareness with it and you'll have more of a conclusion with that thing or that person, and you're not willing to let it go. And one of the tools of access, as Sarah mentioned, we have literally thousands and thousands. One of the tools of access is the willingness to lose everything. And Gary's always said, the willingness to lose everything, you can have everything. And we know the concept. And recently I was like, wow, wow, wow. If I'm willing to lose Gary Dane access, and as I just even look at the energy of that, I get this sense like this universe just goes, and here's more. I was like, okay, I'm having that no matter what it takes and no matter what it looks like. So if you play with these tools, there is an unraveling that can be there just for you. And I also want to reiterate one thing that Sarah said too. She said she looked at these tools and it took her about a year of asking of how those tools could work for her. Okay. This whole consciousness thing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's like as you choose, and you could choose the smallest of things. Like look at one of these, look at gratitude or look at trust. Like, do you trust you? Do you trust your body? Like that's something that I've been looking at recently, where I trust my body and where I don't trust my body. And I can see the elements of where I do when I do trust my body, and I'm like, wow, why would I not trust it over here? Okay, let's add this in. What do I need to pock and pod? What do I need to change? What do I need to choose in order to have trusting my body in every situation? You know?
Yeah.
So it's like really playing with these tools, like have a soft landing in your world, not this hard landing. Because when we go, oh, I'm not doing this, and then what do you go to? You go to judgment. And it's like, no, no more. No judgment. It's like, what if you could be grateful for remembering one question, asking one question today?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be access consciousness doesn't have to be this set of tools and processes that is a place where you judge you. It's about choice. And I get that more and more. It's about what actually works for you. And I love the way at the beginning of the podcast, Sarah, you mentioned I guess educating or teaching people how to be with you by how you be with you.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. Is there anything on that you want to expand on, or any of the?
Yeah. I mean, I see things in pictures. So often I talk like, an elementary school child. That's how it happens for me. But like with this approach to the great five, the five elements of intimacy. And then you said allowance is my new best friend. Which is so cool. That was the other piece that I would like add to for the listeners is it felt like I was getting to know someone in my like character brain for the first time. Like I had so many ideas, like projections and expectations of what gratitude was. Like to me, I wasn't grateful for things because I didn't cry when I received them. Because I had so many people in my life that if they received, they would not, it's not that I've never cried in receiving. I definitely have. But I was measuring it by how many tears fell. So if I wasn't crying, I wasn't
Wow.
grateful. And
Yeah.
that was just a solid point of view in my world, And then when I started to get to know gratitude showed me like, no, sweetheart, that's an energy. And a lot of people put on tears to try to prove they're grateful. And what if you could acknowledge that you don't do that? And how much more gratitude could you have in your life? And gratitude literally wrapped its arms around me and was like, what have you always been? That is gratitude that you're not acknowledging. And then the walls and barriers to all of my points of view about me with regards to gratitude started to slip out of my world. And that went for all of the elements. It truly was like having five new best friends and getting to know them intimately, believe it or not.
I love that. There's a story about trust for myself is, if you've ever gone to a conscious horse, conscious rider class, they are amazing. They're brilliant. I'm a big fan of it. And Sarah has a horse in Costa Rica. So do I. I'm very much looking forward to seeing our horses soon. And there is an exercise that they do sometimes in the class, and it's called the trust exercise. And basically what you do is you get on the back of the horse bareback, and you're straddling the horse. And the first time I ever did this, I had someone on my left, someone on my right, someone holding the horse. So basically you've got this Like you can't, if you fall off, someone's going to catch you, right? And the whole idea is to be on top of the horse and just be with your body and be with the horse's body and trust because the way you feel a horse on bareback is so different to being in a saddle. Trust the horse, trust your body, trust your body, trust your body, trust your body, that it actually knows what it's doing. And for anyone who is a control freak like me, trusting your body on another big, 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 big animal that's bigger than me is not the easiest choice to make, right? Well, I hadn't made it an easy choice. Let's put it that way. And then you can do different things like lean back on the horse. And as the horse might take a step or two, and the whole movement of the horse's body and your body underneath it is incredible, right? But the first time I did that, I pretty much couldn't do it. And also, me being wanting to be right, I was like, well, I'll just get off. And then there was like 2 or 3 other times throughout many years that exercise has come up, and I'm always like, no, let everybody else do it. Just avoided it. And it's like, so like how many, if you look at these elements like trust, honor, allowance, gratitude, vulnerability again, which one are you avoiding? What if you didn't avoid it? And so I made, and it's this thing that I always point to my solar plex, but it's like this something that you have to dig deep and find that bravery and that courage that you have for you, which is the 5 elements of intimacy, embracing and engaging with them. And I went, not what would it take for me to do this so I could prove anything, but I realized I wasn't trusting my body. So I was like, okay, what would it take to change this? And so I actually don't even remember the exact moment, but now I freaking love that exercise. And now I go riding my horse Pluma bareback and doing like figure eights and all this sort of stuff and playing with it. And that's one of the things Gary said to me. He said, you do trust your body with Pluma, my horse. And I'm looking at that energy because it's this big animal. I mean, they could do whatever they want, but you have to have this communion and this engagement with them. That is not about reins. It's not about anything of that. It's about being a leader and requesting and also honoring her and honoring me at the same time, right? And I also think you should look at this, guys, with sex. It's like if you have a partner where you are honoring them and honoring you at the same time, then there is this trust factor in sex that can be friggin' amazing and off the charts, right? And all the elements of intimacy, okay? And that's a whole other topic. Like Sarah said, you can play with these 5 elements of intimacy with everything: money, sex, business, all your relationships. But I would like to invite you to start with you. So that trust exercise, now I'm like, it ignited something. It's like if you had all these candles burning and most of them have been blown out because you didn't have the trust. Now there's like more candles, there's infinite candles. And there's this energy of like, okay, so this has shown up. I've chosen this. Now what else can I trust with my body? Now what else can I trust with everything? So everywhere that you're avoiding any of these elements, will you please destroy and uncreate it? Right, on, good and bad, POC and POD, all 100, shorts, boys, progress, creations, spaces, and beyonds. So vulnerability, gratitude, allowance, honor, and trust. Is there any other like little story you have with any of those that's shown up for you?
Oh, there's so many. But on the topic of trust that you were going over with the horsey right now, I would do the same thing that I said I had about gratitude, like any listeners, because we are so entrained to believe that trust is something that it is not. Um,
Mm.
uh, Trust, you're taught when you're a kid that trust is you'll do that what I want you to do. You'll make the choice that I want you to make. And what that does is it shows you how to have trust in someone else's knowing or awareness or guidelines or rules or control. So you trust that mom and dad are having you do these things or choose these things because you trust them to know better. That's the
Because they
message.
know more than you. Yeah.
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 And like, change parenting, change the world. This is my tagline because it is such a handed down thing and it is all not intentional, not cognitive. It's just like how it's done kind of thing where we love this little creature so much that we just gave birth to that we will have to control the crap out of it to prove how much we care about it control and caring gets interwoven, and then trust gets so like dismantled, for how we ever learn to trust us, if the thought or the voice in our head telling us what to do is coming out of someone else's mouth. And far after you leave your parents, you're still calling up all of the things that they implanted in you as a point of view or as a rule or as a guideline, or as how to be safe or how to make, good choices with money. Like, you're pulling on all of that all the time because no one's asking you, what are you aware of? What would you like to choose? And when you choose, then you get the awareness of what your choice created, so you can choose something different. But that's not how we're taught here. So we're literally never, ever taught to trust ourselves, ever, unless you have an access parent and you were lucky. But
yeah, go ahead.
But so then we go out and we go in relationships, and then this word trust gets tossed around, and you're supposed to trust someone. But again, it's coming from that paradigm of, I'm going to trust you to do the things that make me comfortable, happy, secure. And now I can trust you. But then you're not bringing your awareness along. So someone can be trustworthy, if you will, worthy of your trust for what? Showing up like they start on green. I don't know. Like, they're just good to go because you chose them. I don't know. Now breaking it all down, I'm like, wow, we're cute.
Yeah.
But so there's no, like, you're not leaning on your awareness. You're like, hey, I'm choosing to date you, so I'm going to trust you. And here are my rules so that you do what I want you to do so that you remain trustworthy, which is what your parents did to you. If you're not using your awareness, you're not linking your awareness to trust, whether that's with your body or your being's awareness of the world around it, you're not using trust. Trust is dynamically linked to your awareness and you accessing it and having access to it to create for you. So it could be that someone shows up and the energy's light and you follow that, but you're trusting you to know what is going on or what they're choosing or how whatever they're choosing, whether that honors you, you're trusting you. And you can have trust for someone else, but you also have to trust them to do what honors them. And that then becomes a whole different recipe for a really beautiful possibility. But it really then we come back, and then here's my friend vulnerability being like,
Exactly.
hello, those two things don't work without me. And I'm like, okay, I hear you, but they all start to play. And I think is one of the things I'd also share, Simone, is that going on this journey myself, I didn't tell anybody else. I wasn't like, hey, I'm going to work on my 5 elements. I didn't do any of that. I didn't put it on a calendar. I really took the time with me. And in that time, the awareness of how they all absolutely do play together.
Yeah.
Like, and again, just right now, I'm like, oh, hey, trust and, your awareness and listen. Oh, wait, you can't have that without vulnerability. They all kind of poke in and are really such a recipe for possibilities. So I don't know how to tie that with a bow, but there it is.
I'll tie it with a bow because I want to add to it as well. And I love the way you mentioned that about relationships and with the trust thing, because so many people, and I see, I can say it because I'm a woman. I see a lot of women specifically do this of going, they get into a relationship and then they decide what that man must do rather than be in question. And then they start to get angry and cranky and resentful when that person maybe is always late or, never cleans the kitchen or never makes the bed or never puts the top on the toothpaste or something so, minuscule. But here's the thing, it's like you can ask and go, hey, would it be possible for this, or something like that, especially if you're living together. And yet, where's the allowance? What if you trust that they're never going to put the toilet seat down? And it's like you getting over your point of view and being in allowance of your point of view and allowance of them, as Sarah said, is going to create something way better and way more beautiful, And then for me, it's like looking at, okay, so what would you like your relationship to be too? At one stage, like my last long-term relationship, it's like he moved out of the house. I brought him out of this house, and it's a pretty big house. And I remember my friend Chris said to me, "It's a big house for one person." And I went, "Yeah, I know. I really like it like that too." And then I had my PR agent saw my bathroom one day, and it's got like his and her sink, and one sink has all my makeup in it because it's just really easy for me to put my makeup on there, She was like, "Oh my God, you can't do that." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "It's really bad feng shui. You're never going to invite a man into your bedroom or your bathroom." And I went, I don't want a man in my bathroom. I was like, for me, it's like, I have another bathroom. That's their bathroom, not my bathroom, you know? So, but it is looking at what you're choosing for you, what works for you, and also what you're inviting in and what you can ask for, because you can ask for something greater as well. And being an allowance of what they're choosing, asking them a question like what actually works for them. For me, I see there's a lot of lies that end up occurring in relationships from not willing to be those five elements of intimacy, of being, hey, look, this is what I'd like to change, this is what I'd like to choose, you know, is this actually working, you know, for you, blah blah blah, and having those conversations that can create something entirely different. um I just want to tell you one little story you reminded me of. You know, you're talking about parenting, and also I'm an aunt, and my niece, when she was like, I think it was like 4 or 5 years old or something like that, she had all this stuff in her hands, and she's walking down the stairs in her house. Watching a 4 or 5-year-old kid walk down, like, you know, you're like, "Arr!" And her mother goes, Ellen, you know, be careful as you go down those stairs. And mum said she stopped mid stairway, turned around with all this stuff in her hand, and looked at me and went, I will not be careful. I will be what Annie Simone said, and I will be aware. It was like, okay, she's been hanging out with Annie Simone a lot, but it's true. It's like, teach your kids to be aware, you know? So
Totally.
careful is implying something completely different. So look at the energy of all these words that we're talking about too. And as Sarah has said a couple of times, where have we misidentified the meaning of these words? And what if you could, you know, really destroy and uncreate everything you've been taught about gratitude, you know, trust, honor, allowance, and vulnerability, and all the definitions you have? And what if everything you've ever been told you found out was a lie? What would these five elements of intimacy, or the great five, as Sarah refers to them, be for you? So I invite you to have a look at that for you and play with it. Use any of the tools that Sarah and I have been talking about. We are so desirous and willing to share everything that we have, and create it as yours. Make it yours. So, Sarah, you also, I know I have a relationship done different class coming up. Mine's starting on the 22nd of August, Australia time. So it's the 21st in the US. But you have one in Mexico, is that correct?
I have one online this weekend. It's not, well, no, actually, that's like a relationship taster. The relationship done different class we moved to September for the 10-week program. So I'm
Okay,
very excited.
great.
I haven't done that one yet.
Great, great, awesome. So you've got, and there are relationship done different facilitators all over the world. I'm just adding that in because it's a real possibility. You get this manual, they're amazing classes, and you get to dive deep and dirty with every topic that you desire to talk about. Like your facilitator is there for you. So you can also go and find another relationship done different facilitator around the world too. This is just one of the many topics. Five Elements of Intimacy. There is a class available called Five Elements of Intimacy. If you look on accessconsciousness.com, if any facilitator is doing it, you'll find it there. But this is just one of the topics. There's so much to dive into with relationships done different. If it's a topic you're avoiding and resisting, I highly recommend leaning into it. Over the last 25 years with Access Consciousness tools, I found everything I resisted. Example, the trust exercise with my horse ended up changing like the most for me. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just so grateful to get to live my life with these tools. That's all. And so
Yeah, me too. Me
glad to be
too.
so lucky.
Me too. Like so much. And every day it just gets better and better and better and greater and greater and greater and greater. And it's like, yes, what else is possible? Don't forget, the mantra of Access Consciousness is all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. So we will have Sarah Grandinetti's details in the show notes. So don't forget to subscribe to the show notes. Please leave a review, share this with everyone. We're, you know, on YouTube and anywhere that you're listening to it. I'd really, really appreciate it. I would like every single person in the world to know that these Access Consciousness tools exist so that they can choose them. They don't have to choose them. I get it. It's not for everyone. Some people don't desire any change. That's one of the most, conflicting things that they would ever choose. So, but please share it with anyone that you think may be desirous of this. And just quickly though, where do people get you if they haven't subscribed to the show notes?
SarahGrandinetti.com or Sarah Grandinetti on Instagram. Those are probably the places
Have you
you'll
got a
find me.
good Have you got a good name for Google? Like, is there any other Sarah Grandinettis?
There are some, but I come up at the first every time.
Okay. All right. I've got a great name for Google. There is
Yeah.
no other Simone Milasas in
Oh,
the
that's
world.
awesome. That's awesome.
I know. It's good. So anyway, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. So Sarah, thank you for being here. I absolutely adore you. I so look forward to seeing you at Elugar, and we
Me
go
too.
for a ride with our horses.
Me too.
So
Thank you so much.
thank you, everybody. Farewell. Adios. Bye-bye.